Marcus Chen stood before the floor-to-ceiling mirror in his penthouse office, adjusting his custom-made Armani tie for the third time. At 45, he cut an impressive figure, silver threading through his dark hair in just the right places, his workout-honed physique filling out his suit perfectly. As CEO of Chentech Solutions, he'd transformed a small startup into a billion-dollar enterprise. Everything about him exuded success, power, and sophistication. Everything except one detail. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa, his wife of 20 years. "Don't forget Tommy's parent-teacher conference next week. The kids made finger paintings today, such a mess but so much fun. Love you." Marcus's jaw tightened as he read the message. He could picture Lisa now, in her modest dress from Target, hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, surrounded by construction paper and glitter glue in her kindergarten classroom. The thought made him wince. She was the same woman he'd fallen in love with 2 decades ago, but he wasn't the same man. He'd evolved, climbed the corporate ladder, transformed himself into someone who belonged in the upper echelons of Silicon Valley society. But Lisa hadn't. The sharp click of heels against marble flooring drew his attention. Victoria Sanders appeared in his doorway, a vision in a red designer dress that probably cost more than Lisa's monthly salary. At 32, the PR executive commanded attention with every calculated movement. Her perfectly manicured fingers traced the doorframe as she entered. "Ready for tonight?" Victoria's voice carried the polish of her Stanford education. The Tech Innovation Awards are basically the Oscars of Silicon Valley. Everyone who matters will be there. Marcus felt his pulse quicken as he took in her sophisticated presence. This was the kind of woman who belonged on his arm at such events, someone who understood the game, who could navigate the subtle power plays of high society with effortless grace. "More than ready," he replied, slipping his phone into his pocket without responding to Lisa's text. "Chentech is nominated for Most Innovative Company of the Year. The press coverage alone will be worth millions." Victoria glided closer, adjusting his tie with practiced intimacy. "And having the right companion at these events can make all the difference. Image is everything in this world, darling. We both know that." As Marcus gazed at their reflection in the mirror, the power couple they appeared to be, he made his decision. He couldn't risk bringing Lisa to tonight's ceremony. Not with so much at stake. Not when her presence would only remind everyone of his humble beginnings, of the life he'd worked so hard to leave behind. "The car will pick us up at 7, he said softly, his hand finding the small of Victoria's back. In 12 hours, he would walk into the grand pavilion with the woman who reflected the image he wanted to project to the world, while his wife thought he was attending another late business meeting. What Marcus didn't know was that tonight's awards ceremony would reveal a truth that would shatter his carefully constructed facade and force him to question everything he thought he knew about success, love, and true worth. 15 years earlier, the break room of Peterson's Son's software had smelled of burnt coffee and microwave burritos. Marcus remembered it clearly: the flickering fluorescent light, the water-stained ceiling tiles, and most vividly, Lisa's radiant smile as she shared her lunch with him every day. She was the office receptionist then, and he was just another junior programmer with big dreams. "You're going to change the world someday," Lisa would say, breaking her sandwich in half and sliding the bigger portion toward him. She knew he skipped meals to save money for programming courses. "I believe in you, Marcus Chen." Those words had been his foundation. Back then, they lived in a cramped studio apartment where the heat only worked half the time. Lisa would grade papers from her night school, teaching courses at their fold-out dinner table, while Marcus coded until dawn, building his first software prototype. "We'll look back at these days and laugh," Lisa had promised, massaging his shoulders when he was ready to give up. She'd wrap her arms around him, her cheek pressed against his back. "These struggles are just the beginning of our story." She'd been right about that part. The struggles were just the beginning. When Marcus landed his first major client, Lisa had organized a celebration in their tiny apartment. She'd saved for weeks to buy a bottle of champagne, serving it in plastic cups because they couldn't afford proper glassware. That night, as they danced to the radio in their socks, her eyes shining with pride, Marcus had felt like the richest man in the world. The real money came 3 years later when Chentech Solutions took off. Lisa had been there through every pitch meeting, every late night, every setback and breakthrough. She'd put her own teaching career on hold to support his dreams, picking up substitute work to maintain flexibility for his unpredictable schedule. Your success is our success, she'd say, straightening his tie before important meetings. We're a team, remember. But somewhere between the first million and the first billion, something had shifted. Success didn't just change their circumstances, it changed Marcus. The first time he met Victoria was at a tech conference in Singapore. She'd approached him after his keynote speech, her perfume expensive and unfamiliar, her handshake lingering a moment too long. Your vision for AI integration in educational systems is revolutionary, she'd said, and something in her voice made him stand straighter, made him feel seen in a way he hadn't in years. Victoria understood the world he now inhabited. She spoke the language of power, of influence, of ambition. When she looked at him, she saw the man he'd become, not the struggling programmer he'd been. The affair began slowly, almost inevitably late-night strategy sessions, business dinners that stretched into drinks, texts that became increasingly personal. Marcus justified it to himself in 100 different ways. He was under immense pressure. He needed someone who could be a proper partner in his new social circle. Lisa, with her teacher's salary and Target clothes, just didn't fit anymore. But Lisa wasn't blind. She noticed the changed passwords on his phone, the late nights that grew more frequent, the way he stopped sharing stories about his day. Yet she faced his growing coldness with a quiet dignity that sometimes made him even angrier. Why didn't she fight back? Why didn't she try to change, to adapt to his new world? Instead, she continued teaching her kindergarten class, coming home with finger paint under her nails and stories about 5-year-olds learning to read. She still packed his favorite lunches, still asked about his day, still touched his arm with gentle affection, even when he flinched away. But "I'll be working late again tonight" became his constant refrain. Lisa would just nod, a sad understanding in her eyes that made him want to confess everything or run away entirely. "Be safe," she'd say. "We'll keep your dinner warm." The "we" included Tommy, their 12-year-old son, who was starting to notice the growing distance between his parents. Marcus saw the questions in his son's eyes during their increasingly rare family dinners, but he pushed aside the guilt. He was providing them with a life of luxury. Wasn't that enough? Victoria understood. "You've outgrown her," she would say, tracing patterns on his chest in the dim light of her downtown apartment. "It happens. People evolve at different rates. You can't hold yourself back out of obligation." But sometimes, in the dead of night, Marcus would remember Lisa's words from their struggling days. "These struggles are just the beginning of our story." He'd never thought to ask what the middle of their story should look like, let alone the end. As the awards ceremony approached, Marcus found himself standing at a crossroads. Lisa had noticed the invitation in his briefcase, had even offered to buy a new dress for the occasion. The hope in her voice had made his chest tight. "It's just a business thing," he'd said dismissively. "No need for spouses to attend." The lie had tasted bitter, but he'd swallowed it down with practiced ease. After all, he told himself, he was protecting her. She would only feel uncomfortable among the tech elite, their sharp suits and sharper judgments. Victoria was the obvious choice for such an event. She knew how to work a room, how to make him look good. Still, as Marcus prepared for the evening that would change everything, Lisa's voice echoed in his mind. "We're a team, remember." But teams could be rebuilt, he told himself. Success required sacrifices, and if those sacrifices included the woman who had believed in him before anyone else did, well, that was the price of progress. Wasn't it? Debt. The Grand Pavilion gleamed like a jewel box under the San Francisco night sky, its glass walls reflecting the city lights. Marcus guided Victoria through the entrance, her black Valentino gown drawing appreciative glances from the valley's elite. His hand rested possessively on the small of her back as they navigated through the crowd of tech moguls, venture capitalists and industry innovators. Marcus Chen, a familiar voice, boomed across the champagne-filled atrium. The man of the hour, Richard Thompson, CEO of Thompson Ventures, approached with his usual larger-than-life presence. "And who is this vision of loveliness?" Victoria extended her hand with practiced grace. Victoria Sanders, head of strategic communications at Vertex Puerto Rico, her smile was calculated perfection. "I've been working closely with Marcus on Chentech's market positioning." "Very closely," I see. Thompson winked, and Marcus felt a flash of pride. This was exactly why he'd brought Victoria. She knew how to play the game, how to make him look good. The next hour was a masterclass in networking. Victoria worked the room like a conductor leading an orchestra, introducing Marcus to key players, laughing at the right moments, dropping subtle hints about Chentex's upcoming projects. She made everything look effortless, from the way she held her champagne flute to how she steered conversations toward Marcus's achievements. "God, I love watching you work," Marcus whispered in her ear as they moved between groups. "Just wait until your big moment," she purred back. "When you win Most Innovative Company, every eye in this room will be on us." But before the main awards ceremony could begin, Sarah Chen Martinez, the evening's host and no relation to Marcus, took the stage. Her presence commanded immediate attention. "Before we move to our standard categories, we have a special announcement," she began, her voice carrying across the now hushed room. "This year, the Technology Innovation Council has decided to create a new award category, the Humanitarian Innovation Impact Award." Marcus felt Victoria's hand tighten on his arm. Special awards meant special publicity opportunities. But this award recognizes individuals who have used technology to create extraordinary positive change in underserved communities, Sarah continued. "The initiative we're honoring tonight began 3 years ago in a single kindergarten classroom." Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket. Another text from Lisa. "Hope your meeting is going well. Tommy and I are so proud of you." He silenced it without reading the full message. What started as a simple teaching aid, Sarah was saying, has grown into a revolutionary educational platform that has transformed early childhood education in low-income areas across 5 states. Something about the description tugged at Marcus's attention. He'd heard rumors about a groundbreaking edtech project coming out of the Bay Area, but he'd been too busy to investigate. This educator noticed that many of her students' parents worked multiple jobs, making it difficult for them to engage in their children's early education. So she created a mobile platform that allows working parents to participate in their children's learning journey regardless of their schedules. Marcus felt a strange sensation in his stomach. Surely this couldn't be. The platform uses AI to translate instructions into 12 different languages, adapts to each family's available time and resources, and has shown remarkable results in improving literacy rates and parent-child engagement. Victoria leaned in to whisper something, but Marcus couldn't hear her over the rushing in his ears as Sarah continued. "What makes this project truly special is that its creator never sought recognition or profit. She offered it freely to other teachers, helping them implement it in their own classrooms, creating a grassroots movement that has now reached over 100,000 families." The room began to spin slightly. Marcus remembered Lisa's late nights at the computer, which he'd assumed were spent grading papers, the programming books he'd spotted on her tablet, which he'd dismissed as casual reading, the parent meetings that ran long, which he'd written off as poor time management. "Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Lisa Chen." The room erupted in applause as the screens around the pavilion lit up with images Lisa in her classroom, surrounded by smiling children. Lisa conducting teacher training sessions. Graphs showing the impressive impact data of her program. Headlines from education journals praising the initiative. And there she was, walking onto the stage in a simple but elegant blue dress, the one she'd bought, just in case he changed his mind about bringing her to the ceremony. Her hair was styled professionally, her makeup subtle but perfect. She looked beautiful, confident, completely at home in front of the crowd of tech elite. Victoria's nails dug into Marcus's arm. "Did you know about this?" she hissed. He couldn't answer, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "I specifically remember you saying your wife was just a kindergarten teacher." Victoria's voice drip-whipped with sudden venom. "That she couldn't possibly understand your world." On stage, Lisa was speaking about passion, about believing in the potential of every child, every parent, every family, about how technology should serve humanity, not the other way around, about how success wasn't measured in dollars but in lives changed. The crowd was captivated. Marcus saw tears in the eyes of hardened venture capitalists, saw tech moguls nodding along with her words, saw Richard Thompson himself giving her a standing ovation. "When I first started teaching," Lisa was saying, "a very wise person told me that technology was going to change the world. He inspired me to believe that with the right tools, anything was possible." Her eyes scanned the crowd, and for a brief moment, they locked with Marcus's. He was right. The irony was devastating. While Marcus had been building his empire, chasing status and validation, Lisa had been quietly revolutionizing education, touching thousands of lives, earning the genuine respect of the very people he'd been so desperate to impress. And he had been ashamed of her. Victoria was already backing away from him, her social survivor's instincts kicking in. "I should mingle," she muttered, but Marcus barely noticed her departure. He stood frozen in place as the room continued to applaud his wife, his brilliant, compassionate, innovative wife, while the weight of his betrayal threatened to crush him completely. The truth he'd been running from was finally inescapable. He hadn't outgrown Lisa. He had shrunk to fit his own shallow ambitions while she had quietly soared past him in every way that truly mattered. Lisa's voice filled the grand pavilion with quiet strength as she continued her acceptance speech. Technology isn't just about creating the next billion-dollar app or disrupting traditional markets. It's about solving real problems for real people. Marcus stood rooted to the spot, memories flooding back with crushing clarity. Lisa hunched over her laptop late at night, not just grading papers as he'd assumed, but coding. The conference calls he'd heard from their home office, which he'd dismissed as parent-teacher meetings, had been with development teams and education experts. Her excitement about breakthroughs with her students, which he'd written off as naive enthusiasm, had been about successful implementation of her platform. When a single mother working 3 jobs can still help her child learn to read, Lisa's voice cracked slightly with emotion. When a father who never finished school himself can confidently engage with his daughter's education, that's true innovation. Another memory hit him, Lisa asking him about API integration over dinner months ago. He'd laughed, patted her hand condescendingly, and changed the subject. Now he realized she'd been seeking genuine technical input, fellow developer to developer. In the front row, Victoria was already networking with a venture capitalist, her body language clearly communicating that she'd never really known Marcus Chen. She caught his eye across the room and gave him a look of pure disdain before turning away. Her true nature, the social climber, the opportunist, was now glaringly obvious. "This award," Lisa continued, holding up the gleaming trophy, "belongs to every teacher who believed in this project, every parent who trusted us with their precious time, and every child who showed us what's possible when we remove barriers to learning." The crowd erupted in applause again. Marcus saw Richard Thompson wiping his eyes. Sarah Chen Martinez was beaming with pride. And there, in the second row, was Tommy, their son, recording everything on his phone, his face glowing with admiration for his mother. When had Tommy arrived? Who had brought him? The question swirled in Marcus's mind before the obvious answer hit him. Lisa had planned this. She'd known all along that she'd be here tonight, known that she'd be receiving this award. And instead of exposing his lie about the business meeting, she'd quietly arranged for their son to witness her moment of triumph. The humiliation was total, but it wasn't public scandal that broke him. It was the realization of how deeply he had betrayed not just his marriage, but the very essence of who they were supposed to be together. And finally, Lisa's voice grew softer, more personal. "I want to thank the person who first showed me that technology could change the world. Who proved that with enough passion and determination, one person really can make a difference." Her eyes met his again, and this time he couldn't look away. "You know who you are." The irony of her words was a physical pain in his chest. She was thanking the man he used to be, the passionate programmer who had once cared more about solving problems than impressing people. When had he lost that version of himself? When had status and appearance become more important than substance and impact? Around him, people were standing, cheering, completely unaware of the personal drama unfolding in their midst. Several tried to catch his eye, probably hoping to connect with Lisa's unnamed inspiration, but Marcus remained frozen, the weight of his choices crushing him. He watched as a group of teachers and parents surrounded Lisa at the bottom of the stage, all eager to share their stories of how her program had changed their lives. She listened to each one with genuine interest, her eyes bright with tears of joy. This was her real power, not just the technical innovation, but the heart behind it. The authentic desire to make a difference. Victoria was now practically draped over a prominent tech investor, her laughter carrying across the room. She'd already moved on, looking for her next opportunity. Had she ever really cared about him at all? Had he ever really cared about her? Or had they both just been using each other to prop up their carefully constructed facades? The contrast between the two women was stark and devastating. Lisa, surrounded by people whose lives she'd genuinely touched, radiated authentic joy and purpose. Victoria, working the room with calculated precision, suddenly seemed hollow, her beauty as artificial as the persona Marcus had been trying to project. But standing alone in the crowd, Marcus Chen, the man who had everything, who had achieved every material success, finally recognized himself for what he was: a fraud. Not because of his humble beginnings, but because he had betrayed everything of real value in pursuit of empty validation. And in that moment of clarity, surrounded by the elite crowd he'd so desperately wanted to impress, Marcus had never felt more ashamed, not of his wife, but of himself. 3 hours after the ceremony ended, Marcus sat in his parked car outside their home, still wearing his $1,000 suit, still struggling to find the courage to go inside. The lights were on in the kitchen. Lisa was awake, probably sharing midnight tea with Tommy, as they often did after important events. Finally, he made his way to the front door. His key turned in the lock, and he found them exactly as he'd imagined, sitting at the kitchen island, 2 steaming mugs between them, Lisa still in her blue dress. "Mum, that was amazing," Tommy was saying. "When can I start helping with the coding?" The conversation stopped as Marcus entered. Tommy's expression hardened, a look no father should ever see on his son's face. Lisa's expression, however, was carefully neutral. "Tommy, honey," she said softly, "could you give your father and me a moment?" After their son left, the silence stretched between them like an ocean. Marcus opened his mouth several times before any words came out. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he finally managed. "No," Lisa agreed quietly. "You don't." "I didn't know," he started, but she cut him off. "You didn't know because you stopped seeing me years ago, Marcus. You looked right through me, assumed you knew everything about me, just like you assumed you knew what success looked like." Her words weren't angry, which somehow made them hurt more. They were simply true. "The program," he said, "it's incredible. The impact you're having. Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried. Many times. But you were too busy becoming someone else to notice." She traced the rim of her mug. "The man I married would have been excited about using technology to help people, would have wanted to collaborate, to build something meaningful together." The truth of her words hit him like physical blows. Every dismissed conversation, every patronizing response, every missed opportunity to be the partner she deserved, they all came rushing back. "I want to be that man again," he whispered. Lisa finally looked at him directly. "That's not something you can prove in one night, Marcus, or with grand gestures or public apologies. It's about choices, daily choices." Over the next few weeks, Marcus learned what those choices looked like. It meant stepping back from his role at Chentech to focus on family healing. It meant attending therapy, both couples and individual. It meant watching Lisa present her program at education conferences and truly seeing her brilliance for the first time. He saw how teachers' eyes lit up when she walked into a room, how parents hugged her with tears in their eyes, sharing stories of children who had finally learned to read, of families brought closer together through her platform. He watched in awe as she turned down million-dollar acquisition offers, insisting that the program remain free and accessible to all. The process of rebuilding trust was slow and often painful. Some days the weight of his betrayal felt insurmountable. But Lisa's capacity for grace, not easy forgiveness, but the willingness to let him prove himself through consistent action, gave him hope. One evening, 6 months after the awards ceremony, Lisa found him in the home office, poring over the program's code. "There's an opportunity to expand the language processing module," he said hesitantly. "If you're interested in collaborating." She studied him for a long moment before pulling up a chair. "Show me what you're thinking." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. A chance to rebuild not just their marriage, but his very understanding of what success truly meant. And as they worked together late into the night, Marcus realized that true innovation wasn't about disrupting markets or impressing investors. It was about using your gifts to make the world a little better, one family at a time. He had finally learned what Lisa had known all along: real success couldn't be measured in dollars or status. It was measured in lives changed, trust rebuilt, and love proven worthy of a second chance. They say you should never judge a book by its cover, but sometimes we make that mistake with the people closest to us. We look at the surface, the clothes they wear, the job title they hold, the social circles they move in, and forget to see the depth of their character, the richness of their hearts, the quiet strength of their dreams. Marcus Chen learned this lesson the hard way. He nearly lost everything chasing an illusion of success, while real success was right there at his kitchen table, grading papers and changing lives. His story reminds us that true worth isn't measured by the car you drive or the suit you wear, but by the lives you touch and the love you give. How many of us have taken someone for granted? How many times have we overlooked the extraordinary in our pursuit of the superficial? Perhaps there's someone in your life right now who deserves a second look, a deeper appreciation, a sincere thank you. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel. Share your own experiences in the comments below. Have you ever misjudged someone important in your life? How did you make it right? Your story could help others realize what truly matters before it's too late. Next week, we'll bring you another powerful tale of redemption and revelation, the promotion that cost him everything. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you won't miss it. Remember, sometimes the most precious treasures in our lives are hiding in plain sight. Don't wait for a wake-up call to appreciate them. This is Real Life Stories, signing off. Stay authentic, stay grateful, and keep believing in the power of second chances.